Hey everybody, so let me just start this off by saying that I actually think that in terms of specific policies, I probably agree with Bret Weinstein on a number of issues. He labels himself as a progressive, and when I've actually heard him talk about policy, I think that he has a lot of good ideas, which is why I'm so baffled as to why he says what he's about to say in this clip. So this is Bret Weinstein saying how he thinks that we should choose the president, what his ideal solution for who should run for president basically. So I'll let him explain it and then I'll come and I'll say why I very thoroughly disagree with it.
So here's the plan. This plan needs a better name, but the working title is the Dark Horse Duo Plan. And the plan looks like this. We draft two individuals. We find two people. One of them is center left and one of them is center right. And these people have to have certain characteristics, a minimum set. They have to be patriotic, they have to be courageous, and they have to be highly capable, right? But that's it.
Okay.
Center left and a center right. And we pair them together. And we draft them with the following plan, that they will govern as a team. That is to say, every important decision will be discussed and they will decide what to do as a team. And only in cases where they cannot reach agreement or whenever something has to be decided on a very short time scale, like a military decision, does the person who inhabits the role of the president govern alone. Okay? We draft these folks, and then 4 years down the road, they switch. And the one who had run for president now runs for the vice presidential spot, and the one who was vice president now runs for president. And they continue this way until one of two things happens. Either we vote someone else in, or one of them has inhabited the office of president twice and is no longer eligible, and then that person has to be replaced.
All right, and so let me just start that off by let me speak a little more broadly, because this is a sentiment that I've heard kind of a lot of people say, not in this exact way. I've never heard this specific plan before, but I've heard people kind of express this idea before, and I think that there's some problems with it where people say that, like, you know, and this is centrist politics. I think that very few people are actually centrist when it comes to policies, and I think that they just like the idea of centrism. They like the idea of someone that's not so divisive, the idea of someone that's, you know, more in the middle, that can get along with everybody. You know, they like the idea of someone, you know, he emphasized it there, someone that could work as a team. You know, he uses a lot of words, and I'll talk about the specifics of his plan, but just this notion that we want someone who's in the middle, who can get along with everyone. And I think that there's some big problems with that when you start looking at actual policy. And, you know, Bret Weinstein says that, you know, policy shouldn't matter when we're picking a president. I disagree. I understand that the president doesn't specifically draft legislation, but they are often looked to as a thought leader when it comes to legislation, when it comes to things like foreign policy, immigration. They do have they have a fair amount of sway. So I think that it is fair to have a pretty strong standard for what we think the president should be in terms of policy. Bret Weinstein's plan does not involve any policy. That's I mean, my number one issue with it. But, like, if we look at specific policies, I mean, Obamacare is a perfect example. That was basically a centrist policy. That was pretty centrist. It's not the full free market approach that the right wants. It's not single payer like the left wants. It's a middle of the road thing. Everybody hates it. There is no politician that says, yeah, Obamacare is great. I guess Biden does, but very, very few people do, because a lot of people are unhappy with it because it rose premiums through the roof. It made healthcare cost so much more because it's just a huge sell it to insurance companies. But, like, this is the problem. Very few people actually support moderate policies. They just like the idea of centrism. And let's talk about his you know, the standards that he put forward. Patriotic. What does that mean? Like, what that they love the country? But do they love the country in what way? There's some people that think that loving the country means that not letting any immigrants in. That's what some people think loving your country is. Some people think that loving the country is, you know, Medicare for all and giving everybody health care. That's being patriotic. What does patriotic mean? Next is courageous. I don't know how you would quantify that in any meaningful way. Like, what does that mean? Courageous, like, that they're willing to, like, fight, like a fist fight, that they're, like, willing to, like, you know, talk in front of a bunch of people. Like, what does courageous mean? That they're able to, like, say what they really mean? Like, you know, and you know that's something I think that's respectable, but I don't think that it's even close to as important as policy. And then the third thing that he says is capable, and this is another thing, and because capable in and of itself isn't good. Like for me personally, I'm a progressive, so if someone's capable at getting a bunch of conservative policies instituted, then someone a capable conservative president is actually not something I want. I want an incapable conservative president because I don't want them to get the policies instituted. I want progressive policies to get implemented. And so, like, I feel like there's some pretty glaring problems with that. But people hear those three plans and they go, ah, that sounds pretty good. Courageous, patriotic, capable. That's what I like. And here's the other reason why I have a problem with it is like Bret Weinstein is saying this is the solution to the problem that we're facing with Biden and Trump. But I would argue Biden is pretty much what Weinstein is arguing for. I mean, he's center left. He's arguably he has like floated the idea of picking a Republican as vice president. He probably won't at this point. He's probably going to pick a Democrat, probably Kamala Harris. Is I would say probably by far the favorite. And like so, but I mean also center left though. Kamala Harris a little up in the air, but for the sake of this argument, we'll say center left. But anyway, Biden is pretty much that. I mean, most people would say he's patriotic. I mean, I don't think anyone's not calling him patriotic. He always talks about how much he loves America. That's patriotic. Courageous. I mean, if you look at like some of the stuff that he's gone through in his personal life, you know, losing so many family members, I think that there's a certain amount of courage that is involved with that. Courageous. I feel like Weinstein would probably disagree on the capable, but like, I don't know. Biden has gotten a lot. That's the thing with Biden is when he was in the Senate, he got a lot of bills passed with like bipartisan support. They were awful bills, but he was capable in that way. He was capable in getting legislation passed. It just wasn't good legislation, but he was capable. And that's the problem is Biden actually perfectly aligns with what Weinstein's saying. But Weinstein says that he doesn't like Biden. And like, here's the thing. Later in the podcast, I encourage everybody to listen to the full podcast. But Weinstein even says, he goes, I'm a progressive and I think that we need progress desperately. That's what he says. And I'm just like, then why are you advocating this for the presidency? Like, why would you do this? This isn't like what's popular. Biden is what you were saying. A strong progressive is what you need. That is because progressive policies actually are incredibly popular with people. Medicare for all, incredibly popular. Free college, incredibly popular. Getting money out of politics, so popular. Ending the corruption, these are so popular. And then another problem that I feel like just really highlights the kind of problem with what Weinstein is arguing for is like the two people that he says that is his like ideal ticket is Andrew Yang and William McRaven. William McRaven, I don't believe he's ever actually held an elected office. I think he's a former Navy SEAL, but I don't know. I did a quick Google search on him. I couldn't find anything in terms of like what he believes policy wise. Just a lot of background on him in the military. So I can't really speak on him. But Andrew Yang, but that was his like center right pick. His center left pick was Andrew Yang. But depending on who you're talking to, Andrew Yang is pretty progressive. Some people put him more libertarian, but like take his UBI bill. I mean, that was his number one issue, UBI. That's pretty progressive because I mean, some people will say that UBI is a libertarian thing, but not the one that Andrew Yang is proposing. Because the libertarian UBI is where you get rid of all welfare and you give UBI instead as a way to like cut government. Andrew Yang's UBI was not that. It was a on top of current welfare benefits. And so that's a progressive policy. So like that right there, Andrew Yang's number one issue, not a center left thing. That is a very left argument. So it's that right there, it falls apart. But when you're not looking at policy, like what does center left even mean? What does center right even mean? Is it supposed to mean like just not divisive? I guess that's what it means. But like that's the problem. Is we can't like fall into the because it's really easy to think that like most important thing is that they're teamwork, that they're well spoken. That's this is why so many people thought Obama was good is because Obama was well spoken. He came off as really I mean people loved how charismatic he was. Policy wise, not so great, and so it's just we can't fall into this like divisiveness is inherently bad. I think that Bernie is probably one of the best candidates that we've had in the current era. Arguably, he's one of the best candidates that we've had. It is a real shame that he is not the Democratic nominee. I think he's the leader that we need right now. But I think that he was divisive in many ways. But who is he divisive against? I mean, the media, the corporate elites. Like he was divisive in certain ways, but people hear divisive and they just instinctively frown on that. And they think of Joe Biden and they think, he's less divisive. But it's like, he's not what's popular. He doesn't support things that are popular. And so I just, this isn't like to pick on Bret Weinstein, because this is something that I see a lot of people say. And like I said, I actually think that Bret Weinstein has some pretty progressive policies if he actually talks about policies. But I think that this is a terrible way to decide who you want to be president. And so anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Comment down below if you disagree with anything I said. But if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe, and have a great day.